Dune and A Song of Ice and Fire are two of my favorite book series of all time, and I've covered both Dune and A Song of Ice and Fire on this channel for quite some time now, and many people have pointed out the several ways in which the two series resemble each other. Some have even called Dune Game of Thrones in space, but I think, in all fairness, since Dune was released first, it would be better to call Game of Thrones Dune in the Middle Ages or something like that, if anything. But how similar are they really? Dune by Frank Herbert was first published in 1965 and went on to become one of the most influential science fiction books of all time, while George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series saw its first book being published in 1996, and since it has inspired a whole new wave of fantasy lovers. The two sagas are both heavy in philosophy, but in Dune the philosophy is front and center while the narrative takes a back seat. In A Song of Ice and Fire, the narrative is center focused while bits of philosophy are just kind of thrown in. Both Dune and A Song of Ice and Fire are set in feudal societies containing feuding noble houses each vying for power. But while A Song of Ice and Fire is set mainly in a fictionalized version of medieval Europe, Dune is set 20,000 years in our future in a galactic empire containing several planets. Both book series explore the inner workings of these feudal societies and demonstrate the flaws in such systems, and both series contain themes relating to how the small actions of the powerful can influence humanity as a whole. And yes, politics plays a major role in both epics. Like A Song of Ice and Fire, Dune centers mainly on those in the positions of power. The political environment in both series is quite volatile, and assassinations and betrayals are quite common in both of them. Both series demonstrate that power is alluring and can be destructive even to those who wield it. Like in A Song of Ice and Fire, several characters in the Dune series are destroyed by power. Though A Song of Ice and Fire is told from the POV of multiple characters depending on the chapter, the Dune series is written so that multiple points of view can be had in the same chapter. The main characters are also much more obvious in the Dune books, but each Dune book tends to focus mainly on a limited handful of characters, while A Song of Ice and Fire deals with a host of character arcs simultaneously. The later Dune books, Heretics of Dune and Chapter House Dune, more closely resemble the style of George R. R. Martin's books, constantly jumping between multiple locations, multiple characters, but still not quite on the scale of Martin's books. I've said before on this channel that I think there are some ways in which Frank Herbert may have inspired George R. R. Martin. One of those ways, which I have mentioned before on this channel, is the character Bran. Bran's character arc is reminiscent of the arc of Paul Atreides, but more so his son, Leto Atreides. Both Paul and Bran have hidden powers which are eventually unlocked. These powers relate to seeing the memories of the past and glimpsing the future. Paul awakens the full potential of his power by consuming the water of life, the bile of a drowned sandworm, and Bran awakens the full potential of his power by consuming a paste made from weirwood seeds. Also thematically, Bran joins with the weirwood net in the same way that Leto II joins with the sand trout. And if the TV show is any indication, and I think that in this case it is, to where Bran's story is leading, then both Bran and Leto transcend their own humanity and use their knowledge of the past and their foresight of the future to become the rulers of mankind in order to shape the fate of men. The substance called the Shade of the Evening in A Song of Ice and Fire also reminds me somewhat of the spice melange in Dune. Once addicted to the spice melange, the eyes of the user become blue within blue. In A Song of Ice and Fire, blue lips mark someone who heavily consumes the Shade of the Evening. Both substances can unlock hidden knowledge. Each substance can thrust one into a trance-like state where they may have prescient visions. The spice melange also extends life if consumed consistently. It is not clear that the Shade of the Evening has such properties, but the Undying of Qarth seem to have lived for an unnaturally long time. Whether this is due to the Shade of the Evening is uncertain. Their long life could also be due to the vampiric nature of their magic. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the A Song of Ice and Fire character, Melisandre, reminds me so much of a sister of the Bene Gesserit. In Dune, the Bene Gesserit are an order of highly skilled women who possess many hidden powers that would seem like magic to the average person. The Bene Gesserit manipulate the influential citizens of the Empire, moving them like chess pieces and breeding them as though they were cattle, all the while posing as a religious organization. Each Bene Gesserit woman exudes a certain grace and elegance with her every move, physical and mental, highly calculated. The Red Witch Melisandre definitely gives me a similar vibe. She is a woman of tremendous mystery who possesses many secret powers, some of which we may have not even seen yet. And lastly, the way Melisandre is kind of at Stannis' side, whispering in his ear, assuring that she is there only to serve him, while ultimately she does have her own goals, is strikingly similar to the way in Dune the Emperor's Bene Gesserit truthsayer, Gaius Helen Mohayim, is at his side, but forwarding the Bene Gesserit agenda in secret. While there are some specific similarities between Dune and A Song of Ice and Fire, I don't think the two are actually that similar. George R. R. Martin creates very human characters that the audience is able to easily empathize with. In Dune, many of the characters have evolved past their humanity in a lot of ways. They come across as more stoic. This can make them less relatable in the eyes of some readers. In Dune, the themes are more important than the characters themselves. What matters is the bigger picture. This is why thousands of years can jump in between books. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series is very much about those characters and what they're doing in this age. Dune is about humanity as a whole, in the past, in the present, and in the future. Both Frank Herbert and George R. R. Martin will forever be known as legendary authors, and it's wonderful to live in a world where we have the opportunity to explore such masterfully crafted and rich and complex fictional universes. If you have any more thoughts on how Dune and A Song of Ice and Fire are similar, head over to my subreddit. You can post it there, link in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and if you really enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to support this channel, click the Patreon link in the description. You know, when I think about it, the dragons are kind of like sandworms, because in the book Heretics of Dune, they talk about how there's a furnace inside of every sandworm. There's like heat being produced, and it says it's a cave of mysterious fire or something like that. And it kind of reminds me about how George R. R. Martin describes the dragons in A Song of Ice and Fire, how there's fire inside of them and there's heat being produced. The sandworms in Dune, in a similar way, produce heat. You could totally like kill somebody with these books. Like, how do you write something like this? People do not appreciate how much effort it takes to write books like this. This is absolutely incredible. You gotta respect George R. R. Martin. You gotta respect Frank Herbert. These glasses aren't even real.